Is NATO preparing for war with Russia? It's a provocative question that has been gaining traction in recent times. Behind the scenes, whispers of a confidential document from the German Ministry of Defense are stirring the pot. This document outlines a potential path to conflict scenario between Russia and NATO, hinting at a series of events that could escalate to a full-fledged conflict. Intrigued? Well, you should be. Stay tuned as we delve into the details. The German newspaper Bild has recently reported on a confidential document from the German Ministry of Defense. This document, which has sent ripples through military circles across the globe, outlines a detailed path to conflict scenario between Russia and NATO. According to the document, NATO's eastern flank could face a potential hybrid attack from Russia as early as February 2024. The document lays out a comprehensive timeline of events that could escalate to a full-scale conflict, culminating in the deployment of hundreds of thousands of NATO troops by the summer of 2025. The scenario, ominously titled Alliance Defense 2025, suggests that Russia may initiate a mobilization wave, adding 200,000 troops to its army. This could be followed by a spring offensive in Ukraine, pushing back Ukrainian forces by June. The document also warns of a shift from covert to overt attacks against the West, with a focus on cyber attacks and hybrid warfare, particularly targeting the Baltic states. The tension could reach a boiling point in October with Russia's potential deployment of troops and medium-range missiles to Kaliningrad. By December 2024, the scenario anticipates a border conflict and riots in the Suwalki Corridor, a strategically significant area in Eastern Europe. In a critical phase of the scenario, Russia, with Belarusian support, could replicate its 2014 invasion tactics in Ukraine, but this time on NATO territory. This could lead to NATO deciding on deterrence measures by May 2025. On a designated Day X, NATO would mobilize 300,000 troops to the eastern flank, including 30,000 from the Bundeswehr. The scenario concludes 30 days after Day X, leaving us with the question of whether NATO's show of force would be sufficient to deter Russia. This document paints an alarming scenario for the future. The document outlines a detailed path to conflict between NATO and Russia. It's a chilling read, a forecast of a series of alarming events that could lead to a full-scale conflict. The scenario, named Alliance Defense 2025, suggests that Russia will kickstart a new wave of mobilization. We're talking about an army boost of 200,000 troops. This massive mobilization is anticipated to be followed by a spring offensive in Ukraine. If this happens, it could push back Ukrainian forces by June. But the scenario doesn't stop there. It predicts a shift from covert to overt attacks against the West starting in July. The focus? Cyber attacks and hybrid warfare, with the Baltic states being the main targets. Such actions could trigger large-scale military exercises by Russia and its ally, Belarus. As the year progresses, the tension is projected to intensify, particularly in October when Russia might deploy troops and medium-range missiles to Kaliningrad. This move would be a clear escalation, pushing the conflict to a new level. And by December 2024, the scenario anticipates a border conflict and riots in the Suwalki Corridor. This is a strategically important area in Eastern Europe, a narrow land strip that links Poland with Lithuania, effectively creating a physical connection between the Baltic states and the rest of NATO. The Suwalki Corridor is often referred to as NATO's Achilles heel due to its vulnerability. It's a small piece of land, but it holds immense strategic value. If Russia were to seize control of this corridor, it could potentially cut off the Baltic states from the rest of the NATO alliance. This would be a significant victory for Russia and a major setback for NATO. The scenario culminates in a border conflict and riots in the strategically important Suwalki Corridor. This potential conflict scenario underscores the need for strategic preparedness and vigilance. It's a stark reminder that the peace we enjoy today is fragile and can be disrupted by the actions of ambitious powers. The stakes are high and the world watches with bated breath. The document predicts a critical phase coinciding with the United States presidential transition. In this scenario, Russia, bolstered by the support of Belarus, could potentially replicate its 2014 invasion tactics in Ukraine. Only this time, it might be on NATO territory. Just imagine the implications of such an act. This is not merely a border dispute, but a direct challenge to the collective defense principle that NATO was founded on. However, NATO is not projected to stand idly by. In response to this potential aggression, NATO is anticipated to decide on a series of deterrence measures by May of 2025. These measures are not specified in the document, but they could encompass a wide range of actions, from economic sanctions to cyber defenses, and even the deployment of additional military forces. The most dramatic part of this scenario is the mobilization of troops to the eastern flank. On a day ominously referred to as Day X, NATO is expected to mobilize a staggering 300,000 troops to the eastern flank. This show of force includes 30,000 from the Bundeswehr, the German armed forces. This massive mobilization would be a clear demonstration of NATO's resolve to defend its member states against any form of aggression. But what happens next? The document doesn't offer a clear answer. The scenario concludes 30 days after Day X, leaving the situation hanging in the balance. It's a cliffhanger of sorts, a reminder that the future is unpredictable and that the outcome of such a conflict is far from certain. But one thing is clear: the stakes are incredibly high. The scenario leaves open the question of NATO's show of force's effectiveness. Would this massive mobilization deter Russia, or would it merely escalate the situation, potentially leading to a full-scale conflict? These are questions that we can't answer definitively, but they underscore the gravity of the situation and the importance of strategic preparedness and vigilance. This scenario underscores the rising concerns within NATO about Russia's military ambitions. The hypothetical conflict painted in the confidential document from the German Ministry of Defense is not just a fantasy war game. It's a reflection of the escalating tensions between NATO and Russia, particularly the potential intensification of the current conflict in Ukraine. This conflict is not isolated, but a part of a larger geopolitical chessboard, where power dynamics and military strategies are constantly in flux. It underlines the urgency for strategic preparedness among NATO members. The alliance must stay ahead of the curve, anticipating potential threats and crafting robust defenses. This includes bolstering cyber defenses, improving military readiness, and strengthening alliances. This is not just about military might. It's also about the resilience of societies, the strength of economies, and the power of diplomacy. It's about standing united in the face of potential aggression and ensuring the security and stability of the NATO member states. In parallel to the military preparedness, another significant initiative is taking shape across the Atlantic. The United States, a key NATO member, is reportedly exploring new avenues to seize frozen Russian assets and transfer them to Ukraine. This move, as reported by the Financial Times, comes amidst ongoing private negotiations. The U.S. has presented a more assertive approach in G7 meetings, suggesting that it has identified a method to carry out asset confiscation while adhering to international law. This initiative could provide significant support to Ukraine, both symbolically and materially. This initiative by the U.S. signifies a strategic shift in the approach towards Russia. It's a clear message that actions have consequences, and the international community won't stand by idly in the face of aggression. It's a testament to the power of economic sanctions and the role they can play in deterring potential aggression. This alarming scenario and the U.S. initiative highlight the urgent need for vigilance among NATO members in the face of potential Russian aggression. The stakes are high, and the world is watching. The actions taken today will shape the geopolitical landscape of tomorrow. The potential conflict scenario paints a grim picture of the future. With rising tensions, escalating actions, and a possible full-scale conflict in sight, the situation calls for strategic preparedness. The anticipation of a hybrid attack by Russia, the potential deployment of troops and missiles, and the imminent need for a robust NATO response underscore the gravity of the situation. As we navigate this precarious landscape, one thing is clear. As NATO members, it is crucial for us to stay vigilant and prepared for any potential aggression.